'Cause we're differently abled, differently.
Welcome back. Out of a need to share and educate other caregivers, DTSK was formed under the leadership of Alice Mundia. She champions for better policies and welfare for caregivers and their children with disabilities. Take a look.
Alice Mundia understands the importance of policy in positive change making.
When we were beginning DTSK in 2015 in a WhatsApp platform, my son was already quite grown. It had been some years. So there was a lot to share, and I was one of the pioneers of Differently Talented Society of Kenya in that WhatsApp group that I think within a day was full at that point in time. 256 members had already joined, I think by the close of 2 days or thereabouts. Being an autistic mother and being a caregiver and primary caregiver to my son has also been one of the key things that make me passionately want to get into policy advocacy, make me passionately want to see DTSK thrive. My son was diagnosed with autism when he was about 3.5 years. That was around 2008. And I would say it was a very, very difficult time for me in terms of being able to access services. And around 2010, I was able to join a group of professionals who had come in and set up Autism Awareness Kenya at that point in time. And I benefited from sitting around professionals at that point in time and gaining some certain knowledge and skills that probably a few of our caregivers probably did not have at that point in time.
As a caregiver, Alice has lived experience that she wanted to share with caregivers and policymakers.
Therapy has been expensive. In 2016 and today, of course, therapy becomes a very expensive cost for the caregivers. So is access to education, access to the schools, access to other services that the children will require, psychosocial support, socio-economic empowerment of our caregivers. So this brought us together in a WhatsApp platform, sharing our experiences, what is happening every day, the care and support required for children with disabilities. And that is what translated to the DTSK, that is the organization today. And my inspiration is because, one, I am a mother to an autistic young adult. Two, because I thought I had gained some certain knowledge and skills that was necessary to push DTSK to a different level. At the same time, my interest was also in policy advocacy and being able to translate the space and ensure persons with autism and related developmental disabilities are well included in all spheres of life, and taking note of the difficulties that we were experiencing.
Taking care of children with autism is expensive, and the children are always dependent on their caregivers.
Children with autism have very high support needs. Remember that autism is a spectrum. So you will find, yes, there are persons with autism who will be able to live independently with a little support. And think about also children, before they get even to that age, the transition pathways, how they get into independent living. But then at the same time, there are those, of course, from childhood to adulthood, have very high support needs, meaning that we have a lot of caregivers who may not necessarily be socioeconomic empowered, who may not go to work.
Like most caregivers, she has had to quit working to take care of her son.
Yes, I was working, and the early years were very hard. They used to be very hard for me because, remember, I have 2 days a week to occupational therapy on Tuesday, speech therapy. I used to go for occupational therapy in Kenyatta National Hospital, and speech therapy on Thursdays. And I would say the early years were hard, and I think they are hard for many of our caregivers. But I would say that is a key challenge that many caregivers are facing. Many of our caregivers, remember the labor laws and what is anchored in the Employment Act. Many employers do not necessarily have flexible work schedules because you're a caregiver or a mother to an autistic child, or you're a father to an autistic child. So we find that many of our caregivers, especially where children have high support needs, they think across the developmental disability space. Persons with Down syndrome, persons with intellectual disabilities, persons with cerebral palsy, persons with autism, persons with epilepsy. Many caregivers struggle getting into work and retaining work. So many of them take odd jobs that require that they have time, a bit of time to provide support to their children, but at the same time to be able to earn some small income. The issues around ensuring that caregivers have requisite skills to get into the spaces that are globally, globally trending right now, like online and remote working, digitalization skills, climate resilient and climate smart agriculture farming, so that they need to learn those requisite skills, and those services need to be provided close to them. And then accommodations within work. Remember that while globally the issue of care and support has been discussed a lot at high level, including ILO documenting the matters relating to unpaid care and the cost of unpaid care across the globe, little is being done to ensure that the policy framework also recognizes the role of caregivers.
She is happy that the Persons with Disabilities Bill seeks to address some of the challenges caregivers face.
The Persons with Disability Bill, its passing is very, very important to us. And I like the fact that it went through Senate, it passed, it has recently gone through the National Assembly, it has been passed, and at the same time it has gone back right now, of course, to the Senate with amendments for review, and then finally it will be assented into an act of parliament. So one of the key provisions when it comes to caregivers is provision of tax exemption for caregivers. And when we take note of the burden of care, remember that many of these costs are being provided or met by families. So we find what is happening within families is, if you would do a research, probably which we have not done, you would find that many families are single-led, single-led households. You find that either it's the mother with the children, and in a few instances, the father with the children with disability. And that becomes a key challenge within the community where we are in terms of the burden of care.
With programs at DTSK aiming at policy change and children with autism welfare, they are not able to cater for all the needs.
We have been able to access support and funding, but this support and funding has not been consistent. Like last year, but one, we had our young adults get into socio-economic empowerment program and get trained in NITA within their areas of interests. We had young adults get into IT training, food and beverage, computerized embroidery, tie and dye, plumbing, mechanical engineering. So young adults with autism are very diverse in terms of what they would want trained on. So we had a group of 30, a mix of young adults and their primary caregivers. Remember, many of our young adults also require support persons to accompany them within their training. But this one was unique because it was a paired approach where like a young adult could be paired with a sibling to train within the area of interest.
However, she foresees a great future that is accommodative of persons with autism.
In the next 5 or 10 years, as an organization that actually is running a center and actually providing services to the community, so that we are able to model and have a center of excellence, so that we do not just speak, but then we can be able as an organization to actually model for others to be able to replicate. One of the other key areas that would make us want to have a center is the issue around transition. Many of our young adults, some of them, yes, they may have acquired some certain skills, but then they find it very difficult to transition and get into dignified work. So as an organization, we would want to move up the space and have a center so that we are able also to provide transition services, and especially trainings, vocational based trainings that are customized to the needs of our audience.
With passion and commitment, Alice has been recognized for the great work of service in her community.
It was exciting to be in that hall, in that big space, and to have my name read out as, a disability advocate, and at the same time, not just a disability advocate, but as a caregiver and a support system to a person with disability, and not just to a person with disability, but to persons with disabilities in general. So it takes me out of my cocoon just as a mother and taking care of my son to being able to serve society. It's inspirational. I don't think money can buy that. Money cannot buy that. So when I reflect where we began, or when my son was diagnosed in 2008, and where we are today, then I reflect on that journey, and I can see it's a journey with a lot of wins, and especially things to celebrate about. And I think that's what we celebrated on that 20 years of disability inclusion by National Council for Persons with Disabilities. And I'm also happy because I also sit on the board of the umbrella body United Disabled Persons of Kenya that also championed back in 2003 for the enactment of the Persons with Disability Act 2003. Of course, we are riding on the shoulders of giants, the people who were back then very passionate about ensuring that that act passed in 2003, and a lot of learnings from them. And so there's a lot to celebrate. Yes, I am. I felt very nice. It was a good feeling. Persons with disabilities across the country need to recognize that they are the voice, and their voices need to be heard in policy making, in policy advocacy, to ensure that they are participating in all spheres. At the same time, my voice also goes to the caregivers. Many caregivers feel lonely and require psychosocial support, but they also need to recognize that you cannot fill from an empty cup. You need to be the voice of your child and keep advocating, keep talking about it, keep providing information and ensuring that you change the narrative within the community when it comes to disability inclusion.